Up to 18 million Chinese have joined the Chinese Communist Party, which is the biggest ruling party in the world. The CPC has helped navigate China's transformation successfully. However, what we see today is one China-bashing campaign after another in quick succession over different issues. Now, how shall we examine the international scrutiny? And does your ruling party in Singapore see or face similar problems and challenges?
Well, the West assumes that unless you are democratic like them, you have elections every few years and change the president or change the prime minister and the whole parliament, then you cannot make progress. You're always below par, subnormal, sub-ideals. That's their preconceived view of the world. That China never had such a tradition, that China is a vast country of 1.3 billion people with a different culture, a different history, they do not understand.
Mr. Lee, China has been labeled as a communist regime. And with the end of the Cold War, there has been a sweeping jubilation about the defeat of communism. And therefore, what we got from the book by Francisco Fukuyama is the end of history and the last man. So it seems the Westerners have a full confidence about their multi-party democracy, the liberal market-oriented economy. What's wrong with their prescription for the rise of China, in your opinion?
Well, these are preconceived ideas, theories which they work out. Because the Soviet Union and the East European states have collapsed, it doesn't mean China will follow. Chinese communism is based on Chinese history and China's conditions, which are different from the Soviet Union or Eastern Europe. It is indigenous, it was local or indigenous created. Therefore, I think if I were Chinese, I just ignore them, carry on with what I've been doing, make my people better, make my country stronger, make my country more prosperous.
Mr. Lee, I have been following your remarks and comments on Mr. Deng Xiaoping, our late senior leader. He is viewed by a majority of the Chinese and indeed China observers as the architect of China's modernization program. How do you characterize what we call Deng Xiaoping theory?
Well, you know, his famous dictum was, white cats, black cats, they catch mice. So it does not matter whether it's white or black, they catch mice. That in a short explanation, a short sentence gives the explanation to his thinking. He's not interested in theories, he's interested in what works. And I think because you had Deng Xiaoping, so he moved China from the Cultural Revolution to stability and progress. If you had not had Deng Xiaoping, I think there would be a very different China. And he came here in November '78. He came to Singapore, I met him. Then he saw a country without natural resources, but relatively prosperous, peaceful, and people contented. And he noticed that we had many investments from outside. Investments bring in foreign markets, foreign technology, and they train our people to managerial and other jobs. He went back in December and had, I think, 6 or 7 free ports, free economic zones, and they succeeded. As a result, gradually China opened up the whole of China as an economic free zone. When Chu Rongxi brought China to the World Trade Organization. He in fact made the whole of China a special free trade country, which was a decisive move, the end result of Deng Xiaoping's critical turning point.
But China's entry into the WTO happened in 2001. With our integration into the rest of the world, China indeed enjoyed a rapid development. But the People's Action Party, your ruling party, has played a leading role in the development of Singapore. Now, let me put aside the differences between the Chinese Communist Party and the People's Action Party of Singapore for the moment. Let's talk about the commonality, if any. I'm convinced that you must have your own perceptions about the similarities. In what particular area do you think the two parties can join hands and explore the commonality?
I think we are both with the same cultural backgrounds. So culture determines or helps frame your thinking. I'm not interested in Western theories as such. I'm interested in that they have these theories and I like to read about them, but it doesn't mean I accept the theories as gospel truth. So my approach is a pragmatic approach. Does it work? Does it not work? If it works, then do it. If it doesn't work, change. I believe Deng Xiaoping has the same approach.
Mr. Lee, you are called far and wide founding father of Singapore and the architect of the Singaporean miracles one way or another. Now, you have completely retired from your politics here. Tell us briefly the legacy that you expect the People's Action Party to inherit from you and your experiences.
I took this country from a very low base in the third world, and in 30 to 40 years, gradually transformed it into a first world country. And now it's gone on to a different leadership, and new problems crop up because people believe that what has been achieved is always secure. I don't believe that is so. I believe once you have weak, ineffective government, the whole progress you have made will spiral downwards. But the majority of people believe it is secure for them, so now they have ideas about the West, two-party system. First world parliament must have two parties. A first world country, the argument is simple. A first world country must have a first world parliament. A first world parliament must have a first world opposition. Then you can change sides. I think if ever we go down that road, I'll be very sorry for Singapore.
Is that a sense of constant insecurity that has inspired you to shape your own vision and perceptions about where Singapore should be going?
Yes, of course. It is so small, so open to the outside world and outside forces, and it's vulnerable. So there's always to be alert to whichever forces are at work, and when the forces are in your favor, use it. Take the wind and sail with it. If it is against you, bring your sails down and wait for the wind to pass.
Mr. Lee, you said earlier that the Chinese Communist Party and the People's Action Party share a similar cultural background. However, China is far bigger in size than Singapore. And yet, China seems to stand ready to learn from your successful experiences. In what particular area do you think we can learn from your legacy in running your economy and the society?
Now, China comes to Singapore to learn specific areas of management, not to learn how we govern our country, because China has its own concepts, its own principles of how it will govern China. But it finds us interesting for the way we have managed to keep the city orderly, to keep the city clean, to keep the people happy with their conditions, everybody with homes, and therefore no anger, no angst, because you can't find a home. It will take you to work a lifetime to get a home. I think this is a problem which you have not solved yet. But it's because you, very early on, did not have what we had, a Housing and Development Board where the government undertook this responsibility. And we made sure that we acquired sufficient land and we are able to build and give every family a home at affordable prices.